Good morning. We're going to begin with singing a welcoming song today. This is the one that we started last week, The Gift by Russell Wallace. You'll have words shortly. The words are up on the screen. This is a song of welcome and about starting a feast, bringing a gift to the feast. And the language is vocables, which are a way that many Western North American Aboriginal groups communicated with each other. And the piece is by Russell Wallace, who's a member of the Lil'wat Nation. So each phrase we will repeat twice. There's twice of the sort of higher one, and then there's twice of the slightly lower one. So we'll start here. Way, hey, yo, yo, way, hey, yo, yo, way, hey, yo, yo, way, hey, yo, yo, way.
Good morning, everyone. On this beautiful sunny day, not too hot in here. So, welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Lisa, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Whether you are taking part in this worship celebration from your home or wherever else you may be, wherever you may log on, you are welcome here. Today, we have two guest speakers, Chuck Shields and Justine Jaegher, and they will chart their journeys within and towards Unitarian Universalism and how those journeys have intersected with Christianity. And I'll introduce them a little bit later in the service. Now, here's Phil from our board with announcements for today. Phil?
Good morning, I'm Phil Nagy. I'm on the board of FirstU, and today there is once again a staple in the announcements. There are four announcements. The zoning submission prepared by Thea, our partners in the campus redevelopment project, have been deemed complete by city staff and will go to the planning committee on August 28th for a decision before going to council. The committee is soliciting comments from the public about the project. Deadline July 25th. That's soon. Information about how to do that is available on our website by going to What's Happening and then Affordable Housing. Open the document at the top of the page. If you have questions about this, please contact Chuck Shields at president@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Next, FirstU is going to co-own a 16-story apartment building on our campus, and we are committed to ensuring that there are funds to subsidize some units for low-income individuals and families. Join Lisa Sharp and the Justice Equality Action Group in the new Housing Affordability Circle to create a concrete action plan for making this a reality. If you'd like to help, please contact Lisa Sharp at lisasharp@rogers.com. No period between Lisa and Sharp. Next, the Canadian Unitarian Council announces the creation of the Reverend Rod Fund for Youth and Young Adults in memory of Reverend Rod Solano Cannell, who passed away tragically a year ago in an automobile accident. Many at FirstU will remember Reverend Rod from his pre-ministry time with us as an active congregant, especially with young adults. Details about how to contribute to the fund are available on the CUC website at cuc.ca. Finally, the Jaegher program at FirstU is seeking a volunteer to keep track of finances and provide support to prepare budgets and reports. Scheduling of this involvement is flexible. If you have a few hours a month to spare and want to contribute to this wonderful reconciliation project, please contact us at jaegher@firstunitarianottawa.ca. As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you're right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it's available at the welcome table at the back of the pews. This morning, each of us is welcome. We of any heritage or faith, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all part of this spiritual community.
Thank you, Phil. And so from the bottom of our collective hearts, we acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is the responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and to all those who have a willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Our opening words today come from the late Canadian UU minister, Reverend John W. Barrows Johnson. I have not come to give you truth, nor have you come to give truth to me. We have come together to recreate the truth, for only a created truth can be a living truth, and only a living truth can blossom, and thus become large enough to embrace the wholeness of our lives. Let's join together in singing our chalice lighting song. Chalice, chalice, burning bright, now remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day, with love and truth will we lead the way. And now, please rise in body and spirit to sing our opening hymn, Amazing Grace, from the Gray Hymnal, hymn number 205.
Sorry, before we start, I just wanted to mention, if you're following along in the hymnal, there are alternate words for verse 1, and we're going to sing soul rather than wretch in verse 1. All right, take 2.
I
Thank you, Summer Choir. And our chalice is lit. Let us worship together. And now Justine is going to come forward to share a story with us.
Good morning, everyone. So this is the story for all ages. I believe the kids are mostly downstairs today, but there might be a couple here, including my guy who's fast asleep. It's rude. Okay, so the story this morning is the Golden Rule story, which is adapted from Long Ago in Many Lands by Sophia Lyon-Fawes. 2,000 years ago, in what is now Israel and Palestine, when Jesus came into town, someone who knew him was sure to pass the word around. A plan would be worked out for him to be at a certain place when evening came and the day's work was done. Then men and women who had to work during the day could gather and listen to what Jesus had to say. One evening, a woman spoke up and asked a question. "There are many of us here, Jesus, who have never even learned to read. We have not gone to school. We have not been able to study the laws in the Bible. We can't remember all the laws the preachers in the synagogue tell us about. There seem to be hundreds of laws the preachers say we must follow if we want to please God, but we simply cannot remember them all." Jesus tried to encourage these people. He said, "For many years, our teachers have been adding more and more laws to the ones that are in the Bible. They are meant to help us, but what they have really done is make living a good life so hard that none of us can be counted as good." A man spoke up and said, "I wish you would just tell us, in just one sentence, what is the most important so we can't forget." Jesus said he would share a rule that was similar to the one offered by the famous Rabbi Hillel. Jesus said, this rule is, "Do these things to others that you would like to have others do to you." The people said this was a short rule that they could remember and act on. "Try the rule," said Jesus. "It doesn't take long to say it, but it may take a long time to learn to follow it. Do those things to others that you would like to have others do to you." It was a very short rule, but one that is still remembered after nearly 2,000 years. We call it our Golden Rule. This simple thought makes so much sense that it can be found in many other faith traditions. I believe we have a poster. Yes, excellent. The poster shown on the screen, which was developed by the Scarborough Missions, which is a progressive Catholic order in Toronto, shows how this rule, this thought, has been expressed in 13 faiths that are practiced around the world. These include Christianity, Unitarian Universalism, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and First Nations spirituality. And I understand that this poster has made the rounds in this congregation thanks to our very own Alex Campbell in the RE program. So there it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justine. Each week, we pause in our time together in recognition of both the joy and sorrow in our lives and across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges by placing a stone in a bowl of water. As the ripples extend outward, we can imagine them continuing out beyond these small bowls, out through and past our pews, and out into the larger community of all. So we've had no requests for stones today. I would like to just put a stone in with hopes and wishes that peace will prevail in our world. Now I invite you to come forward in silence and put a stone or stones in the bowls of water that may represent either joys and sorrows that you may be carrying. Please come forward. Today we have 3 caring cards, which are at the back of the pews if you wish to sign them. And even if you don't know the individuals that these cards are destined for, it's a way to extend our thoughts and our best wishes for people who have really made a huge contribution in our community. And today the 3 cards are going to Terrell, Elizabeth, and Evelyn, the 3 wonderful ladies who every week prepare our hospitality hour with coffee and tea and cookies, so that when we finish in here, they have already been working way ahead of the service getting things ready for us. So we have cards for each of them at the back of the pews. And now I invite you into a time of stillness and reflection. And after a few moments, Jen will bring us back with the gift of music. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest speakers this morning. Our first speaker will be Chuck, and Chuck is a lifelong Unitarian and has been an active member of FirstU for many years, including currently serving as president. He retired in 2016 from a career of leadership roles with national and international health organizations. He keeps occupied with activities at Ottawa First, staying physically active, connecting with friends in a weekly dining and film gathering, following the exploits of the many successful Canadians in the National Basketball Association, and by continuing to explore good food and wine. Our second speaker, Justine de Jaegher. Justine and her wife Tara have been members of FirstU since the summer of 2018. Recently, they welcomed their first child, Robbie, who's with us today. Justine has provided previous guest summer sermons on the topics of faith, uncertainty, and obsessive-compulsive disorder, and labor solidarity and Unitarian Universalism. She grew up in a Catholic tradition, and while now a Unitarian Universalist, still identifies with the Christian faith. And before our guest speakers come up and share with us, they've chosen a reading for us this morning, and it's a poem by Mary Oliver called The Journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. Chuck.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Chuck Shields. Good to be here and have a good crowd out on a wonderful summer Sunday morning. So I and Justine Jaegher are going to collaborate on the service today. It's interesting, though, that last weekend we heard from Brian Cowan about what led him to find his way to Unitarian Universalism from Catholicism. So we got a bit of a theme on Unitarianism and Christianity going in, here in July. So I'll say a bit to start about how this reflection topic came to be, and then I'll talk about my story, having been brought up as a Unitarian. Unitarian Universalist didn't exist in the 50s and early 60s, or very early 60s, before I turned the podium over to Justine, who will talk about her journey. She will then bring us home with some reflections about the importance of pluralism in our faith. Justine and I have had fun working together to develop our thoughts and to identify the story for all ages, some readings and hymns that we believe reflect Unitarian Universalism's Christian roots and the current importance of our faith of pluralism. First, a little bit about how the service topic came about. I've been working as part of the congregation's negotiation team that's been working with our lawyers to develop the documents necessary for redevelopment of our campus. A few months ago, in discussions with the lawyers, it became evident that they weren't very familiar with who we are as a faith community. As part of describing who we are, I said something like, Unitarian Universalism has roots in Protestant Christianity, however, we aren't Christian. Later, some on the negotiating team called me to task for saying that UUs aren't Christian. That led to a deeper conversation about what I had said and meant. I explained that UUism isn't Christian in the traditional sense of holding Jesus as the Son of God and the foundation of our beliefs. Therefore, we as a faith community aren't Christian. There are, however, UUs who are Christian, just as there are UUs who are practicing Buddhists, Jews, pagans, and many other faith traditions, in addition to others who likely have strong cultural connections to their faiths of birth. This I find exciting and is part of the pluralism that's among our values. This led me to reflect on why I'm comfortable recognizing the strong historical connections of UUism to Christianity, but also with acknowledging that UUism isn't Christian. As I began doing some reading, I could see that the evolution of Unitarianism and UUism from Christianity has been going on for some time. I was interested to read a sermon, Unitarian Christianity, that William Ellery Channing delivered over 200 years ago on May 5th, 1819. His urging to think differently about Christianity can be seen in comments he made about the proper relationship with the Bible. I'm going to read a quote, but bear in mind that he did not have the benefit then of our current appreciation of gender. Our leading principle in this is quoting now, our leading principle in interpreting Scripture is this, that the Bible is a book written for men in the language of men, and that its meaning is to be sought in the same manner as that of other books. We feel it our bounden duty to exercise our reason upon the Bible perpetually, to compare, to infer, to look beyond the letter to the spirit, to seek in the nature of the subject and the aim of the writer his true meaning, and in general, to make use of what is known, for explaining what is difficult and for discovering new truths. Around this time, Bob Armstrong approached me about doing one of these summer reflections as part of a service. And I thought, well, it would be interesting to pursue this topic a little bit. Around that time, I also learned that Justine sees herself as Christian UU. I thought it would be stimulating to share our perspectives in a collaborative reflection. We talked and agreed it would be interesting to delve into this topic and that it would be a good way to highlight the pluralism that is in our faith. Now I'd like to move to talking a bit about my own background and my interaction with Christianity as I was growing up. I was brought up Unitarian. This was in the 50s and early 60s, and at that point it was Unitarian, not UU. I'm from the US originally, and my father was with the US Diplomatic Corps. He was posted, and we lived, while I was growing up, largely in Asia, in Hong Kong, Japan, and Korea. My father was a New Englander, and the one of my parents who was the most drawn to Unitarianism. I have early memories of the family receiving periodic large envelopes of mimeographed material from the Unitarian Association's Church of the Larger Fellowship. This is a ministry that still exists, largely on the web now, and ministers to those Unitarians who, like my family, are dispersed and not able to attend a Unitarian congregation. I recall much of the material being based on traditional Bible stories, but presented in ways that underscored Unitarian values and perspectives. You might find it interesting that the Golden Rule story that we heard earlier was adapted from materials that I found in the Church of the Larger Fellowship website. In my early growing up years, I had the sense that we were still connected to, but different than other Protestant denominations. I remember one of the main takeaways from discussions that my father would lead with my sister and brother and I, using the materials, was that Jesus was a great spiritual leader, but not the Son of God, and that there were many other great religious thinkers and leaders, Abraham, Buddha, Confucius, among others. Some of my strongest memories come from my preteen years when we lived in Kobe, Japan. There I attended the Canadian Academy, a school that was, by the way, my first connection with Canada. It was interesting. I attended the Canadian Academy, a school established by the Canadian Mission Board, a Protestant body. The school served international children in Kobe and missionary families scattered in western and southern areas of Japan. Because the school was Christian, we had Bible study at school. My Protestant connections were further emphasized because my family attended the Kobe Union Church, a Protestant multi-denominational church. So I had lots of opportunity to hear traditional Bible stories from the Christian point of view. However, I recognized that the Unitarian interpretation was different, and I found that I preferred those. I began to build an understanding of Unitarianism as being different than Protestant Christianity. Following our time in Kobe, we spent a year in Washington, D.C. area, and I attended the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in Bethesda. That was my 9th grade year, and I participated in the RE program. In that year, the curriculum focused on other religions as part of our studies, and we would attend other religious services. I remember particularly once when we attended a Jewish service. This year of RE helped reinforce for me what I had learned through my time in Kobe: the positive difference between Unitarianism and other faiths, but also a respect for their traditions, and that they were right for the people who participated in those other faith communities. These RE experiences, probably my life experience of living in other countries with different cultures, including different faiths, built in me a comfort and confidence in my Unitarian beliefs but also recognition of the value and worthiness of other faith traditions. This included a recognition that even while Judaism shares much from our Protestant Christian ancestors, we have moved along our own path and can no longer be termed Christian. I'd now like to pass the podium over to Justine, who will share some thoughts of her journey.
Okay, good morning again. Thanks to Chuck for that and for inviting me to collaborate. It has been a lot of fun. So as he noted, in contrast, I was raised Christian, so specifically Roman Catholic, and eventually came to find Unitarian Universalism in my late 20s. And while I do now firmly identify as UU, I do identify as a Christian Unitarian Universalist. And it's at this point that I'd like to insert the caveat, but not that kind of Christian. Because I know that the mainstream view of Christianity for so many is perhaps ultranationalist, anti-immigrant, sometimes cozy with white supremacy, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-science. So I'm kind of evoking Amy Poehler's character in Mean Girls when she says, "I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom." I'm like, I'm not a regular Christian, I'm a Universalist Christian. That reference is maybe for like 4 people, that's okay. The meaning's there. Now maybe, I want to underscore this, maybe that caveat isn't necessary. Maybe I give too little credit to people recognizing a diversity of views within the Christian faith, as they exist, of course, in every faith, nor their ability to distinguish between a political movement of Christian nationalism and a religion. But that's a sermon for another time, and I won't go down that road. So my background. I grew up in a Roman Catholic congregation in southeast Winnipeg. I attended Sunday services, weekly catechism. I went through the rites of baptism, of First Communion, of First Confession, and of confirmation. And there was really a lot that I valued about that time and that religion. The sense of community, a belief in something greater than oneself, teachings of compassion and care for the poor and marginalized, a source of comfort and strength in times of struggle, and Bible stories that emphasized, in my view, social justice and care in the context of tyrannical state and institutional religious oppression. But as I moved through my teenage and young adult years, while I continued to appreciate these things that the Catholic Church brought me, I became more critical of the Church as an institution. I think there's been a lot of value derived from the Church, but also a lot of harm, frankly. I cannot accept the notion of limited salvation or that divine forgiveness was only available to those in the Christian tradition as consistent with my faith. I also eventually realized that I did not wish to continue practicing in a church where as a gay woman I could never marry, and which, at least at the time, continued to excuse or gloss over oppressive colonization and child abuse. That said, and I want to underscore this as well, I do recognize and respect that many within the church continue to advocate for progress from within and are seeing results, and to them I am grateful. But ultimately, I didn't want to cede my faith and my belief in the teachings of Jesus Christ. Could I be a Christian without ascribing to a mainstream Christianity that I profoundly disagreed with? I ultimately decided that yes. So began my search for a new organized religion, and I first went where all disaffected Canadian Catholics who dig Christianity go, which is the United Church. And I had some wonderful experiences there and really respect so much the work of the UCC. Though I did come to realize that through congregational autonomy, there was quite a variance in terms of acceptance of LGBTQ people from church to church. And I also still craved grappling with sources of wisdom, both from religious and secular sources beyond the Bible. So continued my search. Early in our relationship, I visited my now wife's extended family in the eastern townships of Quebec for the first time, and that's when I met her aunt Angie. Aunt Angie is an interfaith minister who was more than happy to talk to us about organized religion. She suggested that we may want to check out our local Unitarian Universalist congregation. So we used the rental car we had secured for that weekend to drive to FirstU on Sunday rather than home. It was clear that this congregation had the deep welcome for queer people that I craved. From the first sermon, it emphasized wisdom from multiple sources, and I realized it allowed me the space to hold on to my Christian faith, but in a Universalist context. So the rest was history. Sitting in these pews, felt so welcome, so engaged, and we knew we'd found our faith community. In his book, Christ for Unitarian Universalists, UU minister Scotty McLennan identifies that slightly less than 20% of American UUs identify as Christian, a number I suspect may be even lower in Canada. In our congregation, I know we have members who identify as UU, some as Christian UU, like myself, others as Buddhist UU, pagan UU, atheist UU, and the list goes on. But of course, Unitarian Universalism is not simply a multi-faith gathering place without its own principles and traditions. They're cited here on either side. That said, many of us do continue to hold on to faith and meaning associated with other religious traditions, while holding space for wisdom from a variety of sources, both religious and secular. As Canadian UU Reverend Philip Hewitt states, a Unitarian may profess allegiance to Christianity or any other great religious traditions of the world, but not in any exclusive sense. In becoming a Unitarian, one does not repudiate such allegiances, but simply places them in a universal context. All right, now to the so what. Why tell this story? Honestly and importantly, first, because Chuck asked me to. But, and I do what Chuck says, but actually, I think to remind us, and frankly myself, of the diversity of beliefs present in this congregation, and that Christianity need not be associated only with a perhaps hyper-nationalist, sometimes anti-science, and biblical literalist interpretation that so many conjure up to mind. And that queer Christians exist, and that many don't feel they need to sacrifice their faith because of who they are. And, importantly, I don't want to frame Christian UUs as the most hard done by any means. I sometimes feel sheepish indicating I'm Christian, given some of the more mainstream and in-your-face manifestations of the faith, but ultimately, so much of the UU environment is frankly conducive to Christian backgrounds and traditions. We meet on Sundays, some of the largest attended services are Easter and Christmas, and Christian and Jewish teachings are, of course, explicitly cited as sources of wisdom. And I appreciate all of that. But how do we ensure that Buddhist UUs, Jewish UUs, and other UUs with no other religious affiliation feel just as welcome? Ultimately, I think it means doing more of what we are doing. As my wife's interfaith minister aunt tells me, the interfaith motto is never instead of, always in addition to, while recognizing that this will be done imperfectly. That charting a path of deep pluralism and welcome within a structure rooted in particular religious traditions that some of us continue to identify with, will not be without its challenges. We emphasize our values of pluralism and religious freedom in Sunday services, in community groups, and in the Religious Exploration Program. We welcome guest summer sermons from people of all backgrounds, and have year-round services highlighting a myriad of religious holidays. We can correct people like Chuck did, who refer to UU as a Christian denomination. We are not a Christian denomination, though we have Christians in our congregation. We are not a Jewish denomination, though we have Jews in our congregation. We are not a Buddhist denomination, though we have Buddhists in our congregation. Some may interpret this as a watering down of multiple faiths, or as Unitarian Universalists lacking their own identity. But I believe quite the opposite. A religion with unique and clear guiding principles, but which welcomes people of all faiths, is, I believe, itself an identity, and one I am proud to hold. The first of our guiding principles, to affirm and promote the worth and dignity of every person, is no small feat. Going back to the golden rule story for all ages, it doesn't take long to say it, but may take a long time to learn to follow it. And pluralism within our congregations, while promoting religious freedoms beyond our doors, is one of the many tools required to uphold this core principle. Finally, as a new parent, and with my experiences as a youth mentor through the Religious Exploration Program, the emphasis on deep pluralism makes me so excited to raise our child, UU. I look forward to sharing with my child an understanding of Christ, my understanding of Christ as a voice of radical inclusion, as an advocate for justice for all God's children, all while continuing to deepen these and other lessons from other religions and people of prophetic wisdom. And I want to hear what he thinks too. I look forward to sharing my beliefs and hearing about his, and knowing that we will always both be welcome here And may we all continue to do that for one another with compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck and Justine, for your my mind's going, ooh, thought-provoking and authentic sharing. Truly touched my heart.
Today, the summer choir is going to sing for you a piece or an arrangement by Hussein Ya Mohammed. Recently, when I was in Newfoundland for the Harbour Voices Festival of Collective Singing Traditions, I had the great opportunity to meet him and attend some of his workshops. And the view that he takes on pluralism and choral music, I thought, really matched beautifully with the service today. Particularly because I think choral music as something that has many of its roots in a Western Judeo-Christian, music. It's something that I think we wrestle with in choral music as well, and it matches very beautifully. Hussein Ya Mohammed's music draws on his Gujarati Indian ancestry, Ismaili Muslim upbringing, and his lived experiences as a fourth-generation Kenyan now living in Canada. And so this piece is a combination of the very common Christian prayer around, you may have heard before, Dona Nobis Pacem, which is grant us peace, with the salawat, which is a call or a prayer for peace, asking for peace on Muhammad and his family. Thank you.
Muhammadin wa
Thank you, Summer Choir. I now invite the greeters to come forward with the offering baskets. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this congregation. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. To make a gift in support of the work of this congregation, you don't need to use the baskets that are now beginning to make their way among the pews. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or to keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. And now please rise in body and spirit and join the summer choir in singing "Come, Come, Whoever You Are," hymn number 188 in the gray hymnal, and the words will also be up on the screen.
Okay, we're going to sing this in a round today. So could I ask Summer Choir if you're in, we're in group one, part one, maybe you can come over here and stand in front of these folks. So you're going to be group one if you're sitting on this side of the room. Group two, if you could come maybe in front of this middle section here. And group three, you're going to be over here. What we will do is we will sing it all together one time. And then we will start with group 1, 2, and 3. So I'll bring in each group. You can follow your people in front as well. And maybe we'll repeat it 2 times once all together, and then 2 times after that in our various parts. All right, all together. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, mine is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, group 1. Come, come, whoever you are, come, come, whoever you are, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, eyes of despair. Come yet again, Thank you. Wonderful singing.
Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that coffee hour will begin in Fellowship Hall immediately after the service. And if you are new here, still feel new, or simply welcome conversation today, please pick up a green mug as you enter Fellowship Hall. Doing so will help others looking forward to good conversation find you. Also, leafy greens, courtesy of the good folks of Ajaski, are available to those who would like some from the Grow Towers in the old volunteer room near Fellowship Hall, so just through the doors over here. Also, we have organic coffee, chocolate, and Palestinian oil available for sale in Fellowship Hall. Our closing words come from Reverend Rebecca Benner. Both Unitarianism and Universalism that held that one of the central callings of religion was to create God's kingdom here on earth by working for greater peace and justice wherever and whenever possible. Both also were, from the beginning, non-creedal faiths. In other words, although there were many attempts to articulate the basic theological understandings of each tradition, there was no statement of belief that people had to sign on to when they joined the church. We have changed from a religious tradition that was clearly and explicitly Christian to one that embraces the religious pluralism we find in our world and within our own congregations. And by no means have we finished changing. No wonder we sometimes have difficulty knowing who we are. This morning's chalice is extinguished, but the spark of our connection and faith remains. And now, please stand and join in the singing of Spirit of Life in both French and English, and the words will be appearing on the screen. And our thanks to Chuck and Justine for putting so much thought and care into this service today. And so let's close with a benediction from John O'Donohue from his poem, Matin. Let us live this day, compassionate of heart, clear in word, gracious in awareness, courageous in thought, and generous in love. Go in peace. Until next Sunday.